The Legend of Halloween Jack is bland. That's the only way I can describe this movie. Bland. I mean, if you'd like a variation of the word bland, you can choose from a selection of words such as boring, drab, dreary, or monotonous. Or shit. Usually, when I sit down and watch one of these bad movies, I tend to come out of it feeling something, whether that be irritation, anger, joy, or even upset. Some of these movies can be entertaining and fun to watch, some can be enraging and make me want to give up watching movies altogether, and some can make me want to cry due to how terrible they were, and make me lose hope in any kind of artistic medium. But The Legend of Halloween Jack didn't make me feel anything after watching it. Nothing. I wasn't even exactly bored during the runtime. I just felt nothing, as if my depression was acting up or something. Misa, don't joke about depression, it's offensive, and no, shut up, I have it, this is my channel, fuck off, alright? The only real piece of information of note for this film is that it was filmed in Wales and has a predominantly English cast. Now, I would say that that made it feel more relatable to me as a film, since I'm from the land of fish and chips myself, but it just kinda didn't. I mean, people are wandering about with handguns in this movie. People in the town that the movie's set in seem to really care about Halloween and celebrating it, even though no one in the UK really gives a flying fuck about Halloween except, well, me, because I'm a horror freak. And worst of all, I only saw one chav while watching this thing.
Alright. Right, steady on, Grandad.
Chavs multiply and breed more than any other kind of British citizen statistically. I mean, I watched Jeremy Kyle. I should know this shit. So there only being one in this film is not representative of the England that I know. I guess this movie is supposed to take place in an unrealistic version of England since the city it's set in is made up. I mean, there was no mention of the town that the movie's set in being called Dunwich within the entire running time, but apparently that's what it's called, and it's supposed to be based on the name of a fictional H.P. Lovecraft city. I mean, that kind of shows at least that the director is a bit of a horror nerd. That's kind of something, like at least he cares about horror. Well, cares enough to put in a little Easter egg like that. Speaking of the director, he's a lovely looking young gentleman named Andrew Jones, and he's directed very similar horror titles to this one, such as the Robert Dole series, Cabin 22, and Werewolves of the Third Reich. And considering the title of that last movie, I may actually end up reviewing some of his other works in the future. Not just because they all look about the same quality as The Legend of Halloween Jack, but because Werewolves of the Third Reich looks fucking sick, man! I mean, I've watched Dead Snow, and you know, zombie Nazis, that's pretty fucking cool, but werewolves that are Nazis? I mean, oh man, that sounds rad. But anyway, I wanted to point out these other movies just to show that this guy clearly does like horror movies and making them, and I don't want to deter him from doing so in case he does watch this video, which he might because he kind of follows me on Twitter now. I actually think that the fact that he's so passionate about what he does, which is clear from the fact that he's been directing and producing horror movies since 2006, is actually pretty cool. I mean, I'd rather more horror films be made than less, since I love horror whether it's good or bad, and I'm glad that someone who seems to love what he does is continuing to make them. That's pretty nice, actually. I mean, the guy has 8 movies in production for 2019, including a sequel to The Legend of Halloween Jack, so, I mean, hey, good on him, right? Now let's tear his film to shreds. So, before I even have time to prepare myself for the opening of the movie, and it's obviously an intriguing plot and everything, I'm introduced to a plethora of stock footage of other older horror movies that have nothing to do with the plot of this one except, you know, the genre of them. I really don't know what it is with these low budget movies and stock footage, but it's just so pointless and it doesn't help set the tone for the movie at all. I know that stock footage is cheap to use, which is probably why they use it, but it doesn't immerse you into the movie or the story in any way. It just distracts you and makes you wonder, why are they using stock footage? If I were making a movie, I'd rather that the story sucked the audience in than be lazy and use footage that I didn't even shoot, but that's just me. I mean, this stock footage goes on for nearly 4 whole minutes. This film is only an hour and 20 minutes long, and 4 minutes of it is stock footage of other movies. I mean, I guess that's an effective way to pad out the running time, but I wouldn't be as annoyed at the movie for using stock footage if it didn't go on for that long. I mean, at least when the Beaster Bunny used stock footage, it wasn't going on for too long, and most of the movie is shot by the actual producers and director of the movie. I cannot believe I just complimented the Beaster Bunny. But I did. Anyway, moving on. The movie starts out with the murder of a man and a woman and the information that the trial of the supposed killer is about to begin.
Prime suspect and local Dunwich resident Jack Cain, who police arrested 24 hours after the discovery of the bodies, is currently in court today attending a plea and trial preparation hearing.
Man, that news reporter really sounds like she wants to be there, doesn't she? So, for some reason, the family members of the murder victims, the cop involved, and the mayor of the town are stood above the actual trial and not, sat behind the suspect, like in a normal trial. And there isn't even a jury. And the suspect is sat with no one guarding him and is allowed to get up on his own without security keeping him in check and doesn't have handcuffs on. This really must be a made-up city, because there's no way on God's earth that an actual trial would go this way, especially a murder trial. It might have been worth the director's time to research into how murder trials actually go before shooting this part, because it kind of takes me out of the story yet again when this clearly isn't set in reality. Anyway, the accused murderer, Jack Cain, despite apparently having a huge amount of evidence stacked up against him, pleads not guilty and decides to represent himself.
For the second time, that given the very serious charges, it is in your best interest to enlist legal counsel in this matter.
I'll be representing myself, Your Honor. I have nothing to hide.
And anyway, it doesn't really matter because he's let go due to being questioned after an illegal arrest. Something which can actually happen, but is very rare, so I don't know, I guess I kind of commend the movie for picking this kind of plotline. It could have been really interesting if it were in a bigger budgeted movie with a better plot, but, God, I feel like I keep giving this thing backhanded compliments. Jeez, I'm sorry. So anyway, because of the decision made, the brother and the dad of the murder victims, as well as the cop who fucked up with the arrest and the mayor of the town, decide to band together and get justice on their own and go after Cain.
Joe, Johnny, we're going to get you justice. And how do you propose to do that?
Now, I know that since this character is the mayor, it's not impossible to think that he could cover this kind of thing up. But the thing is, I don't think that the mayor of a small town would be up for going and murdering someone, and even be the one to suggest it to a policeman, who could probably arrest him just for suggesting it under the crime of conspiring to murder somebody. I mean, I'm not into law stuff, but even I know that that's probably not a good idea. I mean, I know that the mayor character and the police character are supposed to be friends, even though we don't really see them interact in a friendly way at all during the movie, like, ever, and it's only really mentioned briefly.
Well, all of us go back a long way, Frank. I may be the mayor of this town, but I'm also your friend.
But that's still a really stupid thing to say in front of two civilians and a cop. I mean, putting the cop aside, he doesn't know these two people. They could rat him out or even be recording the conversation. I don't think an intelligent mayor would do this, but I'm just saying, it's just me. But regardless, the cop and the two others decide to go along with it, the cop mainly because Cain could kill again, apparently. And ordinarily, I would think that that is a very weak reason to go and kill somebody, but to be fair, Cain does kind of walk around with a handgun in the British countryside. I mean, for crying out loud, a hunting rifle, I can understand. But a fucking handgun in Britain? Really? There is no way that this guy isn't a criminal. I mean, they could just drop the plan that they've got right now and just easily arrest him and keep him locked up for a long ass time just for owning that thing. There is literally no need to hunt him down and kill him. But I guess they're gonna do it anyway, because, the plot demands it. You're telling me that he didn't see that coming? How did this dumbass think he was going to represent himself in court if he couldn't even see that in his peripheral vision? Now, I don't know about you guys, you precious audience members, but if I were hypothetically planning to murder someone and get away with it, I would not do it in a field so close to my hometown, and I wouldn't be using loud-ass rifles that would instantly give away where I was. Also, I wouldn't go to the trouble of stringing the guy up like a scarecrow when I knew that I'd have to bury him later anyway, since that's extra effort. And I wouldn't wait hours after knocking him out to do it. I mean, it was early afternoon when they knocked him out, and now it's the middle of the night. I mean, I understand that these guys wanted Cain to know why he was being killed, and to make him understand that this was revenge, and to do it in a way that said, hey, I'm pretty mad you killed those people. But they're doing this so close to their town, it seems a bit unsafe to me.
I'll not only live with it, I'll wake up smiling every fucking day knowing you're gone.
That guy is not the father of someone in their mid-20s. He's like, what, 35? Also, just to point out, his acting is pretty bad.
Do it, Johnny! Do it for your sister! Do it!
Jesus Christ, those blood spurts. So, Cain's dead, buried, and the 4 guys who did it promised to never speak of what they did ever again. Not gonna lie, this is quite a decent setup to what's to come for a movie like this. And yet again, if the movie had a better budget and better actors and a better script, I think this could have been a pretty decent horror movie. So a year passes, and the brother to one of the victims decides that he can't handle what he did, and he goes back to the spot where Cain is buried. This poor boy tries so hard to act drunk and upset, but instead he just comes across as someone trying to act drunk and upset. He, for some reason, also has a handgun, because they're apparently so easy to obtain in Britain. He kills himself because he can't live with killing someone, and it's not very clear what causes it, but Jack suddenly decides to rise from the dead and wants revenge for being murdered. I'm honestly not entirely sure if the guy's blood caused this, or Jack just decided that he was getting a backache from laying down for so long and decided to get up, but I guess it kind of doesn't matter. He's back, and he has a super deep voice all of a sudden.
Life is just a dream for the dead.
Radical. So life goes on for the other guys who murdered Jack. The cop guy hears what happened to the kid who killed himself, leaves, and his daughter tries to throw up, but only throws up spit. That's kind of gross, to be honest. I'd actually rather that they showed her actually throwing up.
Check out the body.
Jesus. How long has he been out here?
Well, I know he was at work yesterday, so no longer than 24 hours. Just never seen a body decompose in such a short space of time.
It's really not clear whether Jack actually has the ability to drain people of their youth or decompose them or something, because it doesn't really happen later in the film. He only really seems to kill people in normal ways that any person could do, even if they weren't magically resurrected from the dead, but I guess he managed it this once for unexplained reasons. Regardless, the cop is understandably unsettled by what has happened. So the mayor is looking over some Halloween stuff, since it happens to be Halloween during this movie. Actually, stop the presses. Can we talk about that for a second? So this movie is called The Legend of Halloween Jack, right? So you'd assume that the whole story would revolve around Halloween in some way. Like, maybe he was killed on Halloween night. Maybe he was obsessed with Halloween. Maybe he killed those 2 people from the beginning on Halloween. But it only seems to be relevant to the day that he runs rampant and kills people. He wasn't killed on Halloween, since I think it would have been mentioned if he was, and he wasn't resurrected on Halloween or anything. He was resurrected the night before Halloween. And I don't even really think he was resurrected on the anniversary of his death either, because I think they would have mentioned it in the film. So why is Halloween such an important aspect of his name? Because he happened to kill people on Halloween? That was a completely random occurrence because he happened to be brought back to life the night before Halloween. The fact that he was resurrected the night before Halloween might even have just been a coincidence. He should really be called The Night Before Halloween Jack or something. And to be frank with you guys, I have watched this movie 3 times and nowhere has anyone said the 2 words Halloween Jack together. Everyone either calls him Cain or Jack. Look, I know that I might be thinking too much into this because that's kind of what I do, but every film that I've watched with Halloween in the name has something kind of major to do with Halloween, and it doesn't just happen to happen on Halloween. It just seems a bit weird to me, and I think maybe the script should have made it clearer. I mean, I don't even exactly know if this whole thing takes place a year exactly after Cain was murdered or not, because it doesn't really say. No one in the movie really says, oh no, it's coming up the anniversary of the day that Jack Cain disappeared. You know, if the director made the story a bit more cliche, yeah, it would be cliche, but at least it would make more sense. Like, picture this. Jack could have been killed on Halloween night by the four guys and rose from the dead the morning of Halloween. Instead of the kid going there the night before Halloween, he went on the morning of. And he went there to scream at the grave and have an emotional breakdown because it's the anniversary of him murdering Jack, and it's also just gone the anniversary of his sister's death. It's pretty emotional in terms of timing for him. But when he gets there, Jack rises from the grave and kills him, which also saves the kid from having the gun and making the story more relatable to the Brits it's supposed to be representing. And Jack rises up to rain terror on people, and especially the people who killed him. I mean, yeah, what I just suggested isn't perfect, but it's very easy to follow, and it's way more understandable than what we've been given. Anyway, sorry, rant over. So the mayor is dealing with Halloween stuff, and the world's least discreet man appears to give him the news of the boy killing himself.
This is fucked up. If the police start sniffing around that area, they're gonna find more than what they bargained for.
Alright.
What'd that wit little fuck have to do with that?
Stay calm. I'll speak to Frank. We'll sort it out.
There is no way on God's earth that that woman did not hear that. I am calling bullshit, movie. So the cop character goes to give the bad news to the mother of the boy, and I kinda laughed when I first watched this scene.
Damn you for letting him go.
I didn't let him go. I made a mistake. I have to live with it every day.
Poor you.
This woman's acting is so cringeworthy that I couldn't do anything but giggle. Like, if I had lost my daughter and my son in the space of a year, I would kind of be in pieces. I wouldn't be, well, like this. The next scene is supposed to be funny because of the contrast of an older guy and a younger guy who's a bit of a chav, but it just comes across as wince-worthy.
Fuck, what the hell is that?
Granny Fanny!
Real lack of standards, your generation.
Oh my god, we've got a squirter!
Who the hell watches stuff like that at work? Go home and do that, you freak. So this lovely gentleman describes how he pulled an epic prank social experiment 2018 gone wrong gone sexual on his friend on a lad's holiday, and he basically nearly broke this guy up with his girlfriend, just, you know, for the lols and for the pants.
Right, so James, he's in tears and he calls his girlfriend and he confesses to his first gay experience and he catches the next flight back home. And I didn't tell him the truth until 6 months later.
Look, I have a boyfriend and his group of friends are pretty into that whole banter shit, but I'm pretty sure none of them would do something like that, okay? You're not doing this for banter, you're just a dick. I mean, come on, you expect me to feel sympathy for this character because he dies in the next scene? No, he's an unlikable prick. And this is kind of another issue I have with this movie. No one that we've met so far has been likable. I don't care if any of these characters die. This is kind of a trope within horror movies as a whole, where the main characters are all annoying college students that just want to have sex, get drunk and do drugs, so no one really in the audience cares about them. But this movie doesn't even have that excuse, because all the main characters seem to be fully grown adults. All of them are just dull and don't have any oomph about them. I don't care about the characters because they don't really have character. One of the reasons that I really like Hereditary is that every single character has depth to them. They have that oomph, and I genuinely care about what happens to every single one of them. They're interesting, they pull me in, they make me feel for them, but this movie just does not do that. I mean, there could have been such an interesting dynamic between the men who killed Cain in the beginning of the film. But unfortunately, the opportunity was wasted. The boy is just whiny and grieving, and that's his character. The dad is just loud and gut-driven, and that's his character. The cop regrets what he did, and that's his character. The mayor is corrupt, and that's his character. I don't care if Cain kills them because they're just cardboard cutouts to me, they're not real people. I know that most horror movies nowadays have this weird expectation that the audience members aren't going to care about the characters anyway because we just all want to watch some bloody deaths and some gore, but some of us actually like to care about the characters that die because it makes us remember the movie more. But speaking of not caring when they die... why would a car mechanic have a scythe? That seems kind of useless when it comes to dealing with cars. I mean, I don't know much about cars. I mean, can anyone in the comments tell me, like, do you use scythes in order to deal with cars? Anyway, the dad character is killed by Jack, and the cop starts to get a bit worried about the people who happen to be dying on that day, so he goes to buy some guns. Oh. A kinda hot character. Haven't seen one of them in a while. You know, if this guy wasn't clearly supposed to be gay, he'd be hot in that kind of, oh, daddy way. Kinda like Negan, but not as murderous. Well, actually, with all those guns, I mean, he would probably still be quite murderous. Sorry, what was I talking about? Sorry guys, it's just this movie is so dull, I need something to distract me, and there's a guy with, you know, a nice body here. Like, come on, can you blame me?
I don't wish to be imposing, but do you have any biscuits?
Us Brits really fucking love our confectionery, don't we? The mayor decides that this woman may know too much and decides to kill her to keep her quiet. So it seems clear that he can pretty much cover up anything that he does because he's the mayor of this town and he has power and all that. But what I don't understand is, why kill her? There is no good reason to kill this woman. It's very obvious to everyone watching this movie that her son did not tell her about what happened to Cain, and she seems completely oblivious to it. So what's the point in getting rid of her? But not only that, even if she did know something, hypothetically, she said earlier that her brother is coming to visit her because, you know, she's just lost another child. He's going to know that something's wrong when his sister just vanishes into thin air, considering she's the one who wanted him to come and visit her. Plus, I'm sure that people in the town are going to wonder where she's gone to as well. People know her because of what happened to her daughter, and I'm sure that she would have told some of them that she was going somewhere if she was going somewhere. They're not just going to assume that she decided to leave without warning. This is kind of a bad plan, kind of like killing Cain in the first place.
Oh, hello, darling.
What are you doing?
I'm just doing all the decorations.
But they should have been done this morning.
Oh, well, I've been really busy with all the cakes as well. Some of them are a little bit burnt, so.
What do you mean? You haven't finished the decorations. You've burnt the food. What have you been doing? Redo them.
Jesus Christ, this character is so ridiculously unlikable and abusive that I actually kind of hope that Jack kills him. This is probably the first horror movie I have ever watched where I've sided with the killer. This guy should be killed. I mean, he's a murderer, he treats his wife like shit, he's corrupt, and he thinks that killing people is the solution to all of his problems. I mean, hey, he'd probably kill his wife if she annoyed him if he got the chance. And the worst part about him being a douche to his wife is that I don't even understand why he thinks she needs to get everything ready in that house. I mean, the community are all clearly going to that hall that he was in earlier and not his house, so the decorations, as far as we know, are just for his wife and himself. But if he's going to the event anyway, then why do they need decorations up? Halloween is not that big of a deal in the UK. It's not fucking Christmas, we don't just all have decorations up during Halloween. And it's the same with the food. If she's taking the food to the hall, fair enough, but they clearly had a lot of food there. It's not really a necessity that she brings extra food on top of that food. Him getting angry at his wife just made absolutely no sense, so not only is he abusive to her, but he's also abusive for no reason that could even remotely make sense. Ugh. Anyway, they both get killed by Jack, so it doesn't matter. The second cop finds the mayor and his wife despite him having no real reason to be in their house snooping around. I mean, did he get a tip that someone was being murdered? Like, why is he in there? How did he even get in? Then a band is seen playing at the Halloween party at the hall, and for copyright reasons I cannot show you this, but they are playing on screen for about 3 minutes. Now, I mentioned near the beginning of this review that the movie itself is only 1 hour and 20 minutes long, and the fact that they are playing this banned clip for this long kind of says to me they paid to get exposure. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think this band are actually decent, but it's just kind of obvious. If you want to be subtle about stuff like this and have them play for a little bit and then maybe bring them back later on in the story, but having them play for as long as you are having them playing makes it very obvious that they paid to be in the movie. Next, we discover that Jack is 100% justified in wanting these men dead, because he wasn't actually responsible for the murders that he was accused of. Dun dun dun! It was some other guy who was already imprisoned. And this cop found this out and decided not to tell anybody.
And I gotta tell you, when Edgar told me how it went down, I believed him. He knew a lot of details about the murders that we kept out of the papers.
So what did you do?
I wrote a report. And then I buried it.
Why?
But there's another theory. It's not quite so rational.
And that is?
Jack Cain is back from the dead.
That's a huge conclusion to jump to, don't you think? We skip to the cop's daughter, who happens to be dating the other cop, but, you know, they haven't told the dad because apparently the other cop's a bit of a pussy and doesn't want to piss him off. And we happen to find out that she be preggers, boy.
How's things with Brody? Still haven't told my dad yet. Not sure how he'll react.
I'm sure he'll be fine. He wouldn't employ Brody if you didn't think he was a responsible guy.
Girl, being employable doesn't equate to being good enough for someone's daughter. I don't know what world you live in, but that shit don't fly with dads. Next, we kind of get an explanation as to how Jack probably got brought back to life, but it's not exactly clear.
I see you shared an interest in the occult.
I take it the occult, as you call it, is viewed upon negatively in your world?
You know, I've just kind of noticed, Jack seems to be a culmination of other, more interesting horror icons. He came back to life with black magic like Chucky. He was killed in an act of vigilante justice like Freddy Krueger. He kills people on Halloween like Michael Myers. I mean, it's kind of like a massive combination of all of these different horror movie icons that I kind of love as well. Except, you know, those characters are all interesting and have personalities. I mean, Michael Myers is kind of debatable because he's just completely silent, but at least he's interesting.
You think he's innocent?
On the night those children were murdered, Jack was with me. We were welcoming in the summer solstice down in Sacramento Bay with a group of friends. We didn't return home until after those bodies were discovered.
You and these friends you mentioned. Why didn't you make a statement in his defence?
It wasn't necessary, as you know. But consider this, Mr. Hollister. Would your system have really taken the word of people such as us?
Okay, no. The justice system would not give a damn what you do in your spare time. They may care that you're Jack's friend and therefore have motivation to lie, but they won't give a damn that you're into black magic. You should have come forward and at least showed people that your supposed friend was innocent and at least attempted to clear his name before he died.
Of course, there is another explanation for all this.
Which is?
You are the one that's back for revenge.
Wait a minute, weren't you the one who jumped to the conclusion that Jack rose from the dead and murdered people like 10 minutes ago? How is the occult being involved the thing that makes you go, actually, this shit's whack, dog. I don't think I'm gonna believe this.
Only a self-sacrifice will appease him.
Well, you killed an innocent man again. Doesn't seem like you care too much about taking lives, man. You didn't need to kill this guy, like, at all. He was completely unarmed, he wasn't doing anything to you. You could have just taken him to the police station at the bare minimum. God, these characters are just so irritating. I really do hope that Cain kills them all. Don't worry, Misa, you're nearly at the end, you're nearly at the end. So, the other cop heads to the party to pick up and protect the daughter of the main cop. Wait, Jack's a little girl now? What happened to the demon voice? Jack ends up going on a killing spree at this party, and apart from the fact that people act scared of him before he's even done anything malicious, this scene is probably the best one in the film. Mainly just because it's the only part of the film where we see proper practical effects for the gore, and it's pretty damn hilarious. Honestly, I went looking for the budget of this thing, and I honestly just could not find it anywhere, but I have to assume it wasn't that high. Not that there's anything wrong with having kind of bad practical effects, but considering the fact this was made in 2018, it's a bit disappointing. So the second cop shoots him, gets hurt, the main cop shows up and shoots him as well, and it's not like that's going to kill him because the other cop already tried that. But he falls to the floor anyway, and they have a moment to pretty much decide what they're going to do. The cop wants to stay behind in an act of self-sacrifice, kind of like the black magic guy told him to do, even though he ended up killing him, despite him giving him a very decent piece of advice.
Dad, I'm not leaving here without you.
This girl is a moron. The main cop ends up sacrificing himself and setting the building on fire, despite other people being locked in the building too. He clearly just does not care about killing people. And apparently this ends up killing Halloween Jack. But because this is a horror film and the sequel is already in the works, we have a jump scare ending. Welp, that was a load of nothing. Look, I like horror movies. I really, really like horror movies with demons who go around killing people. Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic to me and I fucking love it. But this is nowhere near as good as Nightmare on Elm Street, and that film was made in the 80s. The thing that I think horror movies nowadays tend to forget, despite it being obvious, is that they're meant to scare people. Not cheaply with jump scares. I personally don't count jump scares as actual scares because they don't scare you, they shock you. It's kind of like a cheat code in a game to me. I kind of think of jump scares as the Konami code but for horror movies. Now, horror movies are supposed to be creepy. They're supposed to create an eerie atmosphere or play on something that most people are either terrified of already or something that they would never think to be scared of. I keep bringing up Hereditary, but it's a good horror movie because it creates a creepy atmosphere. Martyrs is a good horror movie because it plays on people's fears of the unknown and mental instability. The Legend of Halloween Jack doesn't make you feel scared, it doesn't make you feel creeped out, it doesn't make you feel sympathy for the characters, it just makes you feel like you're wasted an hour and 20 minutes of your life. And that sounds harsh, but that's how I felt when I left the film. Like I said at the beginning of this review, I didn't feel anything while watching The Legend of Halloween Jack. It's so forgettable as a horror movie that I can't even say anything super bad about it. It's nowhere near as bad as The Beaster Bunny, and it didn't make me feel angry like Circus Cain. It's just nothing. It's just a bland, forgettable movie that I can't even be bothered to talk about in more depth. The only positive thing I can really say about this film is that the director, Andrew Jones, seems to actually care about horror. He put a little horror Easter egg in the movie. He seems to know a bit about other horror movie icons considering he clearly pulled certain aspects of their stories into this one. And he loves making horror movies because he keeps making them and making them and making them. And I do honestly hope that this doesn't deter him in any way from making future movies because as much as I really didn't like this one, I hope that the next Halloween Jack film, The Curse of Halloween Jack, ends up being way better than this one. But Andrew, dude, like, I'm just saying, hit me up on Twitter because you live in the UK, right? And my acting's actually not that bad, and I've always wanted to be in a horror film, and I will work for free, so I'm just saying, hit me up, man. So, that was my review of The Legend of Halloween Jack. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I just wanted to put a quick message at the end of this video to say thank you for 1,000 subscribers on the channel. I know most of you came from my old channel, but it's still really cool to see that I could potentially grow this one. And I do hope that you guys enjoyed this new content of me reviewing movies. It's very enjoyable for me to do. I watch bad movies constantly in my free time, so it's just kind of fun. I'm not just going to be reviewing, bad horror movies. I'm just going to starting out doing that because these are the movies that I tend to watch the most. I might also review bad TV shows or anime or, other genres of films. If you guys have any suggestions for films that you want me to review, then just let me know in the comments. If you have any suggestions for shows, let me know in the comments, or you can tweet at me. My Twitter is @MissChibiMisa. The link to that is in the description. Or even, Instagram me, because, my Instagram's also in the description of the video. Just a little promotion there. But thank you for watching this video. If you guys want to, like and subscribe. God, I can't even. I find that stuff so cringy. If you feel like it, that would be nice, but you don't have to. I understand. This content is not for everybody. But thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. I don't know what I'm reviewing next, but hopefully I will rummage through my DVD box and find something that's terrible that I haven't watched in a while. So yeah, see you then. Bye everybody.